Right. So in today's class, we will discuss this asymptotic notations. This is a very simple topic where there are few important points you should remember, and there are few properties you should remember regarding this asymptotic notations. Right. So let us tell me what these asymptotic notations are and where we come across these asymptotic notations. So asymptotic is a term, right, which makes us to move, which tells us that to move closely to the curve, right? So it is a mathematical term where asymptotic notations are mathematical notations, and we do some operations to move closer to the curve. So that is called as asymptotic, right? So that is a vague definition or vague introduction to asymptotic notations. The first point is asymptotic notations are mathematical notations. So we make use of these mathematical notations to explain the complexity of the algorithms. Right, where we are going to use these asymptotic notations means we are going to use these asymptotic notations in case of algorithms. We know what an algorithm is. What is an algorithm?
Step-by-step process of
Step-by-step process of a solution to a problem is called as a algorithm, right? We have discussed in the previous offline classes also, we have discussed that there are two terms that are related to measure the efficiency of the algorithm. One is the time complexity and second one is the space complexity. The time complexity gives the time taken to execute the algorithm is called as the time complexity, and the space complexity says that the total space that is required to store the algorithm is called as the space complexity. And in the class also we have discussed that out of these two complexity algorithms, or out of these two terms, the time complexity plays very important role when compared to that of the space complexity. The reason is we have a lot of space, and the lot of space is available for cheaper costs. Nowadays we have larger amounts of memory that are available for cheaper costs, right? So we don't bother about the space. But when coming to the time complexity, we are very much worried about the time complexity. As I told that if one particular problem can have how many solutions?
Many number of solutions, sir.
Many number of solutions are available. That means one problem can have any number of algorithms, many number of algorithms, right? So out of all the algorithms, if I want to pick out or pick a best algorithm, so the problem is a single problem, but we have n number of solutions. Out of these n number of solutions, if I want to take the best solution, so what I have to do is I have to apply these asymptotic notations to all the algorithms. When you apply the asymptotic notations or time complexity, or when you calculate the time complexity of all these algorithms, and you pick one you pick one algorithm which is having the less time complexity, that algorithm is considered to be the best algorithm, right? So these all things we have discussed in the offline classes also. So we are going to deal with somewhat new terminology in this computer science world, which is very important. And when you move through the other semesters in this course, particularly BTech course, right, you will come across a subject called as the design and analysis of algorithms. Design and analysis of algorithms. In this particular subject, you will learn all these asymptotic notations in a detailed manner, right? So right now, what we are going to deal is somewhat vague in nature, and we are going to introduce you to this particular new terminology. What is asymptotic? What is the asymptotic notations? What are the various types of asymptotic notations we have? So what is big O notation? What is omega notation? What is theta notation? All these things we will discuss, and we will end up this topic by discussing some of the properties of these asymptotic notations. Right? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. Sir. So as I told that an algorithm is a step-by-step process, or it is a step-by-step solution for a problem. And the efficiency of an algorithm depends on amount of time. What is the terminology? What is the equivalent terminology for this one?
Time complexity.
Time complexity. Super, right? And it also depends on storage. What is this terminology? Equivalent terminology?
Space complexity.
Space complexity.
Space complexity, sir.
Super. It is space complexity. So majorly we will take these two terms, and when we want to compare the most efficient term out of these two terms, we will go with the time complexity, right, rather than the space complexity. So other than this time complexity and space complexity, we have other resources also, right? Right. What type of input you are taking? So if you take an algorithm, for example, assume that there is a sorting algorithm. So you will come across these sorting algorithms in data structure subject. For example, if we have a sorting algorithm, assume that we have some 3 sorting algorithms, right? For example, bubble sort we take. So in this bubble sort, the complexity of this algorithm depends on algorithm can be explained as time complexity. Similarly, it can be explained in terms of space complexity also. So other than that, there are some other internal resources on which this bubble sort algorithm efficiency is dependent. For example, if I take, for example, this bubble sort accepts a list of elements. Right. For example, I give 5 elements as input to this bubble sort. So the efficiency may vary. If I give the 10 elements as input, if I give 10 elements as input to the bubble sort, the efficiency may vary. For example, if the same algorithm I take, the bubble sort algorithm, now I wish to give 100 elements as the input. So definitely there is a decrease or there is a change in the time complexity. So other than this time complexity and space complexity, there are some other internal resources on which the algorithm efficiency depends. For example, the way in which you give the input or the size of the input size is an internal factor on which the efficiency of the algorithm is dependent. For example, you run this bubble sort algorithm on a world version of computer. For example, you take P3, Pentium 3 processor, and assume that there is some time complexity, some X. And similarly, you run the same bubble sort algorithm on the latest quad-core computer. Assume that the efficiency is Y. How can you relate this X and Y? Is X less than or greater than Y?
X less than Y.
Greater than Y, sir.
X less than Y is a wrong answer. Why? Because if we take P3 Pentium 3 processor, the algorithm has been executed with X milliseconds. And if you run the same algorithm on the quad-core processor, assume that it takes Y milliseconds, right? So which one is lesser?
Y, sir.
Y will be lesser. Therefore, X greater than Y. That means the time complexity, the time taken for the algorithm to run on a P3 processor is more than the time taken by the by a system which is having the quad-core processor, right? So it also depends on the processor on which you are running the algorithm. Like that, these two inputs, for example, the input size and the processor, right? Processor. These are all the internal factors on which the efficiency of the algorithm depends. Is it clear up to this point? These are external factors. The amount of time and storage, that is time complexity and space complexity, are the external factors on which the efficiency of the algorithm depends. But there are some other resources or internal factors like input size and the processor on which you are running the algorithm are the internal factors which also affect the efficiency of the algorithm. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. So an algorithm have different performance for different types of inputs. This is what we have discussed. You take the bubble sort algorithm, you give 5 elements as the input, assume that it is some x1, the time complexity is x1. You give 10 elements as input for the same bubble sort algorithm, assume that it is x2, and you take 100 elements as the input and you give it to the bubble sort, assume that it is x3. How can you relate x1 and x2 and x3?
x1 equal to x2 equal to x3, sir.
x1 is equal to x2 is equal to x3. This cannot happen. Maybe it will happen, but listen carefully. For example, if I take the bubble sort algorithm and I give 5 elements, how much time it will take for sorting this one? Assume that one element is sorted in 1 second. This is just an estimation. Don't take it in as a correct measure, right? So to sort one element, it takes 1 second. So to sort 5 elements, how much time it takes?
5 seconds.
It is 5. So if you take 10 elements, how much time it will take? 10 milliseconds. If you take 100 elements, it will take 100 milliseconds. So x1 is less than, x2 is less than x3. That means the efficiency of the algorithm also depends on the type of input you are giving. It also depends on the size of input you are giving. This is what we are going to, we should learn from this, right? So with the increase in input size, the performance will change. The performance may increase or decrease. That depends on the algorithm which you have written, right? So if you go on increasing the size of the input, the performance may reduce or may increase. It depends on algorithm. Is it clear? Similarly, the efficiency is measured with the help of asymptotic notations. So this is where we come across a new term called as asymptotic notations. So asymptotic notations are used to measure the efficiency of the algorithm. This is the most important point you should remember. What are asymptotic notations? The first point you should tell is they are mathematical notations. They are mathematical notations. And why we use these asymptotic notations means they are used to measure the efficiency of the algorithm. Sir, but why you told that the efficiency of the algorithm is measured in terms of time complexity and space complexity? So the time complexity is nothing but the asymptotic notation. And we are keeping on, we keep on saying that asymptotic notations. Asymptotic notations are nothing but the way in which you measure the time complexity, right? So asymptotic notations are used to measure the efficiency of the algorithm, right? So the word asymptotic means, I told you in the first slide itself, the word asymptotic means approaching to a value or curve arbitrarily closely. So you should make, if you are going to approach the curve, there is a standard curve and you are going to approach to it in a as much closer as you want. That is called as asymptotic, right? We'll see in the diagram also. It's not an issue, right? So you should know just what asymptotic means. Asymptotic means you are going to approach to a particular value or you are going to approach to a curve arbitrarily closer, right? You want to move it closer to the curve. That is called as asymptotic, right? So why we use this model? As I told that this particular asymptotic notations is used to measure the efficiency of the algorithm, right? And we should remember some important points regarding this. We should ignore the constant factors. We'll see some examples also, don't worry, right? But remember that you keep these points in mind, that you should ignore the constant factors and insignificant parts of an expression. We'll see with an example from this, right? So for example, you take this one. What is this one? What is this expression? Can you see this expression?
Quadratic equation, sir.
Quadratic expression.
Yeah, mathematical expression, but can you see this 20n square plus 3n minus 4?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So if we apply the asymptotic approach, if we apply the asymptotic notation to this, the final result will be n square only. So we have an expression called 20n square plus 3n minus 4, but the final result that we will obtain is nothing but n square. How we got this means by looking at this one, right? Ignore the constant factors and insignificant parts of an expression. Insignificant parts means when compared to the value with which the rate at which the n square is increasing will be very high when compared to that of the value of n is increasing. Is it true or not? For example, if I take n is equal to 10, what is n square?
100.
100. If I take n is equal to 100, what is n square?
10,000.
10,000, right? So when you go on, keep on increasing the value of n, you can observe that n square is increasing in a exponential fashion. It's not in the exponential fashion, it is increasing in a square fashion, right? So when we compare this 10,000 and 100, can I neglect this n?
Sir.
Yes, right.
Yes, sir.
So whenever we have an expression consisting of higher powers, we can neglect the insignificant parts. That means 3n minus 4. Minus 4 doesn't have any effect, right? It is simply like a constant, right? So this 3n minus 4 is having a very less effect on the complete expression, right? So what we are left with? We are left with only 20n square. Is it right or not? Right. So here the asymptotic notation says that you can leave or we can ignore the constant factors also. So what is the constant part in 20n square?
20.
20. Therefore we can ignore it and the final result we'll get is n square. Is it right or not?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now you take the second expression n cube plus 100n minus 2. What is the final result?
N cube.
N cube.
N cube. Why? Because this 100n minus 2, these are insignificant parts of the expression. You ignore it. And n cube, the highest power, is having a constant term or coefficient as 1 itself, right? So nothing to do with that coefficient. So the final result will be n cube. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Right. And the second point why we use this model is to devise a better way of representing the complexities of algorithms in a single coefficient. This is important. That's what we have done here, right? In these two examples, 20n square plus 3n minus 4, we have reduced the entire expression to a single term and which is having a single coefficient. Right? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So the efficiency of the algorithms, the complexity of the algorithms cannot be expressed as an expression. That's what you have to remember here. So I cannot express the efficiency of the algorithm as a 20n plus 3n minus 4 or n cube plus
వాయిస్
3n
బ్రేక్
minus
అవుతుంది సార్.
1. Can you see the screen?
We can see the screen, sir, but we cannot hear you.
Voice clear ga ledamma?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So the point here you have to remember is I cannot express the complexity of an algorithm as an expression. So I cannot say
స్క్రీన్
the
షేర్
complex-
అవ్వట్లేదు.
Now
No,
can you see the screen?
No, sir. No, sir.
No, sir.
Now can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So the point here you have to remember is you can ignore the constant factors and insignificant parts of an expression. Similarly, it is used to devise a better way of representing the complexities of the algorithms. What do you mean by better way of representing the complexity means? I cannot express the complexity of an algorithm as an expression like this 20n square plus 3n minus 4 and చెప్పలేనమ్మా నేను. Similarly, I cannot express it as n cube plus 100n square minus 200n plus 24. So those expressions cannot be used to express the complexity of the algorithm. So I want to reduce it to a single term which is having a single coefficient. So that is the reason why we apply all these things, right? So on the third point, why we use this model is to compare the algorithms between, to compare the complexities of the algorithms on single term basis can be done very easily. For example, assume that there is an algorithm 1, right? It is having a complexity of big O of n square. And assume that there is another algorithm 2, which is having a complexity of big O of n cube, right? Now, can I compare these two terms? Can I compare these two terms easily or not? Is
Yes,
n
sir.
cube greater than n square or not?
Greater than m square.
Right. So, which algorithm is efficient now? Is it algorithm 2 or algorithm 1?
1, sir.
Super, right. The algorithm 1 is more efficient than algorithm 2. Why? Because the algorithm 2 is having a complexity of n cube and the algorithm 1 is having the complexity of n square. When we compare these two algorithms, n cube is always greater than n square. That means the time taken for executing the algorithm 2 is more than the time taken by the algorithm 1, right? So whatever algorithm that executes faster, that means the time complexity should be lesser, right? That algorithm is considered to be the efficient algorithm. So in that case, the algorithm 1 is considered to be the best algorithm than the algorithm 2, right? So the comparison becomes very easy when we express the complexities of the algorithms in a single coefficient term. The comparison becomes very easy. So these are the three reasons why we make use of these asymptotic notations. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So here are some of the introduction points we should remember regarding these asymptotic notations. Asymptotic notations are used to represent the complexities of algorithms. This is what we are telling from the starting slide itself. And these are notations and are mathematical tools to represent the complexities of the algorithms. This point also I have discussed in the first slide itself. These are mathematical tools that are used to represent the complexities. Why we are going to use this asymptotic notation means to study the change of performance of an algorithm with the change in order of input size. If you change the input size, how it is going to affect the performance of the algorithm. If you keep on increasing the input size from 10 to 100, 100 to 200, 200 to 300, how it is going to affect the performance of the algorithm. That is explained in terms of asymptotic analysis, right? So this you will come across in the subject called design and analysis of algorithms. Very, very important subject for the CS students, right? And similarly, asymptotic notations are mathematical notations used to describe the running time of the algorithm. This is the original definition of asymptotic notations. So asymptotic notations are nothing but the mathematical notations which are used to explain or which are used to describe the running time of an algorithm. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. Right. So we are going to one more topic regarding this asymptotic notations. If you consider any algorithm, we know that it will have some efficiency, and that efficiency is measured in terms of time and space. Is my voice clear?
Sir.
Right.
Yes,
So
sir.
any algorithm efficiency can be measured in two terms, that is in terms of time and space, right? So when we consider the time complexity, again this time complexity is categorized into three categories. One is the best case, and the second one is average case, and the third one is worst case. Right. So any time complexity, the time complexity of any algorithm you take, it can be divided into three parts. One is the best case and average case and worst case. Right. So what is this best case? What is this average case? What is this worst case? All these things we will discuss. Right. 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 So out of these three cases, in order to measure the correct efficiency of the algorithm, which case we should consider? Do we need to consider the worst
Average case.
Do we need to consider the
Average.
average case or do we need to consider the best case?
Average case, sir.
Ajay goes with the average case. Any other answer?
Best case, sir.
Somebody
Best
who is
case,
there?
sir.
Worst case, sir.
So some people say that there are two words for best case and there is one word for average case and worst case only one case. Any other option? Any other people who want to support the best case, average case or worst case? Any other answers? Right.
Case, sir.
So the answer for this one is the worst case. So whenever you want to measure the correct efficiency of the algorithm, or whenever you want to measure the efficiency of the algorithm correctly, then you should consider the worst case only. How good the algorithm is performing in the worst case is to be considered to measure the correct efficiency. Is it right or not? Right.
Okay, sir.
So if I want to test you people, do I need to give the paper easily or average or worst? Right. I should give a paper in a tough manner. Then only I can correctly pick the correct persons. Right. For example, if a recruiter comes to our college and he wants to pick the best people, what he will do? Do you expect the paper to come in a easier manner or do you expect the paper to come in a toughest manner? Can you hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Give me the answer. If a recruiter comes to your college and he wants to pick the best student from the classroom, so
Tough paper, sir. Tough paper is that, sir.
will he give the paper in a easier manner or average manner or toughest manner?
Toughest manner, sir.
Toughest manner. Toughest means it is the worst case. Is it right or not?
Sir.
Right. So same is the
Yes, sir.
case with the algorithms also. Whenever I want to pick up the best algorithm, then I need to consider the worst case of the algorithm. Worst case means how the algorithm is going to perform in case of worst inputs. For example, if you consider the bubble sort means it is a sorting algorithm where a list of elements nothing but random number of 23, 12, 9, 46, 57, like that, some random number of elements is given to it. So what do you mean by worst case means the input is in the reverse order. So I want to sort the given list of elements in the ascending order. My intention or the algorithm that I have written, the bubble sort algorithm that I have written will sort the elements in the ascending order. What do you mean by worst case? So you give the input in the reverse order. That means you give the input in the descending order. And you calculate the time in which it is sorting these list of descending order elements into the ascending order. So that is called as worst case. Right. So if you take the same bubble sort algorithm and if the input is already sorted, so if the input is already sorted and you want to and you have given it to the bubble sort algorithm as an input, is there anything to do with this bubble sort algorithm?
No, sir. It is already sorted.
It is already sorted. Bubble sort కాదు కదా ఏది ఇచ్చినా అదే చేస్తుంది, right? So bubble sort algorithm efficiency cannot be measured when it is in the best case. So you give the input which is already sorted means it is a best case algorithm. Best case. That means the case is nothing but input. How you are going to give the input. And the next case is the input is neither sorted nor in the reverse order. Then it is considered to be the average case. Right. So to find out the best, to find out the correct performance of the algorithm, don't go with the best case. Similarly, don't go with the average case. you always should go with the worst case analysis only, right? That is why worst case plays very vital role in finding out the efficiency of the algorithms. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, how many types of asymptotic notations are there? There are 3 types of asymptotic notations. That is big O notation. From here, you should learn everything. Right. The first one is big O notation. You should read it as big O. So you write it as big O like this. Right. And what does this big O represents? Big O notation represents? It represents the upper bound of the running time of the algorithm. Right. Upper bound means it is nothing but the worst case complexity. Right. This is very, very important point, Amma. You try to take a snapshot of this one. Right. Big O notation represents the upper bound of the running time of an algorithm. That is nothing but big O notation gives the worst case complexity of an algorithm. Right. Similarly, if you go for omega notation, omega, this one, it represents the lower bound of the running time of an algorithm. The lower bound is nothing but the best case complexity of an algorithm. So in order to find the best case complexity, you will go with the omega notation. In order to find the worst case complexity, you will go with the big O notation. Is it clear up to this point? And the third one is the theta notation. This one, theta. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. And the third one is the theta notation. Theta notation encloses the function from above and below, which represents how we are going to analyze it in the average case complexity. Now you are clear, right? What is worst case complexity denoted with?
Big O
Notation.
Big O notation. What is the best case complexity denoted with?
Omega
Omega notation.
notation.
What is the average case that is complexity is denoted with?
Theta notation.
Theta.
Theta.
So out of big O, omega and theta, which one is more prominent?
Big O notation.
Big O notation. As I told that the worst case complexity of an algorithm gives the correct performance of the algorithm, and we know that the worst case complexity is denoted with big O notations. Therefore, the big O notation plays very important role in obtaining the performance of the algorithms. Right. So whatever algorithm you take in computer science, you will first find out the complexity in the big O notation only. Right. Whenever you are asked what is the time complexity of a bubble sort, you should say that big O of n square. What do you mean? What do you understand by this big O? It is nothing but it is the worst case complexity. That means we are going to measure the worst case complexity of that algorithm. If I say that the binary search is having a time complexity of big O of n log n, what does it mean? That means I am going to find out the worst case analysis of the binary search. That is why I have denoted with big O notation. So whenever you find the term big O, you keep it in mind that you are going to measure the, what is that you are going to measure?
Worst condition, sir. Worst case.
Worst case, right? So is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
So you take the snapshot of this one. Right. So the big O notation is defined with this formula. This formula is very important. Right. So big O of g of n is equal to f of n, where g of n is a function and f of n is a function. There exist positive constants c and n naught such that 0, this is 0, this is not big O, this is 0. 0 less than or equal to f of n less than or equal to c into g of n for all n greater than or equal to n naught. We'll see it in the graph, right? So the above expression can be described as a function f of n belongs to the set big O of g of n if there exists a positive constant c such that it lies between 0 and c into g of n for sufficiently large values of n. So this is the mathematical formula, right? We are going to express the f of n in terms of big O of g of n. That's why we are saying that the function f of n belongs to big O of g of n, and there exists, what is this c here? It is nothing but a constant. So the f of n always lies between 0 and c into z of n, right? We'll see in the graph itself, right? So for any value of n you take, the running time of the algorithm does not cross the time provided by the big O of g of n. So tell me what this big O of n represents. Is it the upper bound or lower bound?
Upper bound.
Upper bound, sir.
Upper bound. That means the time complexity do not cross this time. ఇంతకు మించి పైకి వెళ్ళలేదమ్మా. That is what we are saying, right? Why? Because we have taken the worst case analysis, right? ఎక్కువ టైం ఏ కేసులో స్పెండ్ చేస్తామా? In what case we will spend the most of the time? Is it in worst case or best case?
Worst case, sir.
So we will spend most of our time in the worst case analysis, right? So worst case ante that is the largest time bound. There is no other value which is beyond this big O of n. Is it right or not? So it represents the running time of an algorithm does not cross the time provided by the big O of g of n. So this is the upper bound we are specifying. So big O means you should remember two terms. It represents the upper bound and it represents the worst case analysis, right? And here is what we have discussed earlier. Since it gives the worst case running time of an algorithm, it is widely used to analyze an algorithm, as we are always interested in the worst case scenario only. This is very, very, very important point, right? Don't bother about the average case and the best case. And you never try to analyze an algorithm based on the best case and the average case. You should analyze the algorithm. The performance of the algorithm is always analyzed by taking the worst case scenario only. I have given a real-time example of the recruiter, right? The recruiter comes and he wants to take the best element, so best student, so he will give the paper in the toughest manner. So all the elements who doesn't perform well, all the average case and other things will go off, and he will get the creamy layer, right? That the same thing happens in this algorithm also. So whenever you want to find the best algorithm, you should always concentrate on the worst case scenario. You should always concentrate how the algorithm is performing in the worst case scenario. That is what you have to measure. Is it right or not? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is our f of n and this is c into g of n, right? So this is our main function. You can see that c into g of n, here we have n naught, and from here you can observe that the f of n is always below the c into g of n, right? So it represents the upper bound. It represents the upper bound. Similarly, if you go for the omega notation, what does omega notation represents? Does it represent the lower bound or upper bound?
Lower bound.
Lower.
So it represents the lower bound, and hence it is used to find the
Best
best
case.
case analysis, right? So that function is defined like this: omega of g of n, same lines lo untadam, nothing more than that. Omega of g of n is equal to f of n. There exist positive constants c and n naught such that 0 is less than, here there is a change here, right? In the previous case we have 0 less than or equal to f of n less than or equal to c into g of n, but here we are representing it as the lower bound. Therefore 0 is less than or equal to c into g of n less than or equal to f of n. Here you have to observe this change, right? For all n greater than or equal to n naught, the above expression can be described as function f of n belongs to the set omega of g of n if there exists a positive constant c such that it lies above c into g of n for sufficiently large values, right? So for any value of n, the minimum time required by the algorithm is given by omega of g of n. Is it right or not? Are we going to represent the minimum time or maximum time using omega?
Minimum time, sir. Minimum time.
Minimum time. Why? Because worst case means it gives the minimum time.
Best
You
case,
complete
sir.
the it is the best case. Therefore, it will complete the execution within minimum time. That is the reason
Yes,
why
sir.
omega is always used to consider the minimum time required by the algorithm. Right. So this is how the graph looks like. Here is our f of n, and this is c into g of n. So from here n naught, you can observe that the graph always lies above this c into g of n. That means this c into g of n, it is representing the lower bound. Lower bound, and it is nothing but the best case. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Right. The third one, theta notation. Theta notation means it represents the average case. Is it clear? Represent
Yes,
the
sir.
average case. Right. So theta of g of n is defined like this. Theta of g of n is equal to f of n. There exists positive constant. Here you can observe that there are two constants. Why? Because it is an average case. So it neither represents the minimum time or maximum time. It represents a time which lies between two different constants. So you have to take two constants, c1 and c2, and n0, such that 0 is less than c1 of gn is less than f of n less than or equal to c2 into g of n. Right. So if a function f of n lies anywhere between these two values, c1 of g of n and c2 of g of n, then f of n is said to be asymptotically tight bound. That means we are going to measure the average case. This is how the graph looks like. So here we have f of n, and here it represents, what is this one? Is it lower bound or upper bound?
Lower bounds. C1 is lower bound, sir. C2 is
Lower bound, sir.
C1 into g of n is lower bound. What case it is? Is it best case or worst case?
best case, sir.
Best case, sir.
Right. Lower means best case. And what is this C2 into g of n? It represents the upper bound. And it is going to represent the
Worst
worst
case.
case. So the f of n, that theta always lies between the best case and the worst case, hence it is represented as average case. Is it clear?
Sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So that's all about the asymptotic notations. We know what this asymptotic notation is. It is a mathematical notation. Why we go for this asymptotic notation means to represent the efficiency of the algorithm, we will go for these asymptotic notations. There are three types of asymptotic notation: big O notation, omega notation, and theta notation. Big O represents the upper bound, and it is the worst case analysis. Omega represents the lower bound, and it is used to find out the best case analysis. And we have a mid between this worst case and the best case, which is nothing but the average case. And the notation that we use to represent the average case analysis is theta. So you should remember these three terms: big O, omega, theta. Out of which one is best one? In order to find the correct efficiency, what we have to consider? Is it big O or omega or theta?
Big O, sir.
Big O.
Super, right? Big O notation. Why? Because it represents the worst case analysis, right? So now we are going into some of the general properties of these asymptotic notations. So the first property is if f of n is big O of g of n, then you multiply this f of n with a constant. A is nothing but a constant. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So a into f of n is also big O of g of n. Right. For example, you take the f of n as 2n square plus 5. What is the asymptotic notation we have here? What is the final result? So you should remember one point, that insignificant factors and constants should be removed. This is a constant, remove it. And whatever, you should make the highest power as having the coefficient of 1. Therefore, it becomes big O of n square. You should not say it as n square, it is big O of n square. Now you multiply this f of n with 7. What is the result we have? That is 14n square plus 35. Now if you find the big O notation of this one, what happens? It is again big O of n square only. Is it right or
Big
not?
of n square.
So if f of n is having a time complexity of big O of g of n, then if f of n is multiplied with a constant, the resultant expression will also lead to the same value of big O of g of n only. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So this property applies for omega and theta also. Omega is the best case analysis and theta is the average case analysis. The same thing happens in the other two asymptotic notations. Right. Now coming to the second property, transitive property. What do you mean by transitive? If A is having a relationship with B and B is having a relationship with C, then definitely A will have some relationship with C. This is what the transitive property says. Right. So if A and B are relatives and B and C are relatives, then A and C also becomes the relatives. This is what the transitive property says. So if f of n is big O of g of n and g of n is big O of h of n, then you can simply say that f of n is equal to big O of h of n. I think you know very well about these properties, right? Transitive property.
Yes, sir.
Right. So if you, for example, if you take f of n as n, there is nothing but big O of n. Don't get confused. Right. F of n is n, g of n is n square, and h of n is n cube. So n becomes big O of g of n, nothing but big O of n square, and n square is big O of h of n, that is nothing but big O of n cube. Then n is big O of n cube. Is it true or not? According to the transitive property, this particular rule is applied, and it is very much true for this particular problem, right? And so this property is always true in case of big O, omega and theta also. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We'll move to the third property, which is reflexive property. What do you mean by reflexive property? Let me take an example, right? So if 5 belongs to natural number set and 10 belongs to natural number set, what about 5 plus 10? That means the expression, whatever operation you perform, 5 plus 10 is equal to 15. Does it belong to natural numbers?
Natural numbers.
Yes, sir.
This is called as reflexive property. So if two of the values belongs to the natural number set, then if you perform any operation on these two natural numbers, then the result will also be a natural number, right? So the same thing also applies here, right? So you take x is equal to f of n, y is equal to big O of f of n. Themselves is a reflexive relation. That means f of n is equal to n square, big O of n square, that is big O of f of n. So it always belongs to this f of n only. Is it clear?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
sir, 10 natural number, 10 natural number का sir, 10 minus 10 मरी 0 not a natural number का sir.
Then that minus is not reflexive for this reflexive property. Addition is reflexive. Understand?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
We should say these properties with respect to operations only. So whatever example we have given is perfect, right? So I will say that plus is reflexive, but minus is not reflexive, according to the example you have given.
Okay, sir.
Right. So the same properties can be applied to this omega and theta also. So you keep it in mind, and we are moving into another property, which is nothing but symmetric property. Right. So you take a screenshot of this. If f of n is, listen carefully. If f of n is, what is this notation here? Is it big O or omega or theta?
Theta.
Theta, sir.
Theta. Theta means average case or best case or worst case?
Average case, sir.
Average case.
Average case. So if f of n is theta of g of n, then g of n is theta of f of n. Symmetric property, amma. A plus b is equal to B plus A, or else A star B is equal to B star A. That means plus is symmetric and star is symmetric. But can you say that A minus B is equal to B minus A?
No, sir.
No, therefore minus is not symmetric. That's it. So if you take f of n and g of n, f of n is theta of g of n, then g of n is theta of f of n. What is this property called? Symmetric property. And remember that this symmetric property only satisfies the big O theta notation only. So it cannot be applied to big O and it cannot be applied to omega. Right. So this property is applicable to only the average case analysis only. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now you take the transpose symmetric property, right? So if f of n is big O of g of n, then g of n is omega of f of n. See here, the property, the asymptotic notations are being changed here. So that's the reason why we are saying that it is transpose symmetric. So you are going to apply this symmetric property across different notations. We are taking these two notations, big O notation and omega notation. So if f of n is defined as big O of g of n, then g of n is omega. Is it omega or not? Yes, omega. Omega of f of n. Right. And this property is only satisfied by big O and omega notations only. So this cannot be applied to other properties like theta and big O. Not applicable. Omega and theta, not applicable. So this is not applicable for the other asymptotic notations, and this transpose symmetric property is applicable only for big O and omega. Is it clear? Right. So there are some other properties. If f of n is equal to big O of g of n and f of n is equal to omega of g of n, then listen carefully. Then what happened to f of n? It is theta of g of n. So this is one property. And second one is if f of n is equal to big O of g of n and d of n is equal to big O of e of n. So f of n plus d of n is equal to omega of max of g of n. Now this property is very important. You please mark a star mark on this property, right? So we are taking two functions, f of n and d of n. What is the time complexity of f of n? What is the time complexity of f of n?
G of n.
Time complexity ఎంత ఉంది?
Big O of g of n, sir.
Big O of g of n. What is the time complexity of d of n?
Big O of e of n.
E of n.
Big O of e of n. So if I combine these two things, that is f of n and d of n, if I combine this f of n and d of n using plus operator, so which complexity I have to take? I have to take the maximum of big O of g of n and e of n, right? We will explain it with an example. Let us take this f of n is having a time complexity of big O of n, and d of n is having a time complexity of n square. Then what happens to this f of n plus d of n? It is nothing but f of n is n plus what is d of n? N square. Now what is the final result we have?
N square. Big O of n square.
What is that you are taking? You are taking the maximum of n square and n. Is it right or not?
Yes, sir.
Right, that is what he is explaining. Then f of n plus d of n is equal to big O of max of g of n and e of n. That means we are taking the max of what is d of n here? It is what is f of n? It is n, and what is d of n? It is n square. What is the maximum value of this n and n square? It is n square. Therefore, the final result will end up with the big O of n square. Is it clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Sir, మళ్ళీ చెప్పండి సార్.
Okay. Listen carefully. Right. So what this second formula is saying is, you take two algorithms, right? You take two functions, f of n and d of n, and f of n is having an algorithmic complexity of big O of g of n. That means the worst case time complexity of f of n is g of n. Is it right or not? And d of n is explained as big O of e of n. That means the worst case time complexity of d of n is big O of e of n. Now if I combine these two functions f of n and d of n using a plus operator, then the final result will be big O of max of g of n comma e of n. So whatever values you have, this g of n and e of n, you take the maximum value. That will be the result. Is it right or not? Now we'll solve it with a particular problem. Here he has given the f of n as big O of n, and d of n is given as big O of n square. Now if I combine this f of n plus d of n, Ajay, are you listening? Ajay. So if I combine this f of n and d of n, what happens to f of, what is the time complexity of f of n? It is n. Plus, what is the time complexity of d of n? It is n square. Now if you find this big O of n plus n square, the result will be big O of n square only, according to the formulas which we have explained earlier. Right? So this can be explained like this also. So max of, instead of formula, what I give is, I will give this one directly. So f of n plus d of n is equal to max of g of n. What is g of n here? It is nothing but n, comma e of n. What is e of n? It is n square. So what is the maximum value of n and n square?
N square, sir.
N square. So that is what we got here also, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now coming to the last property, if f of n is equal to big O of g of n and d of n is equal to big O of e of n, then f of n into d of n is equal to big O of g of n into e of n. Again, we'll take an example. Let us take f of n is equal to big O of n. So what is g of n? This one. Similarly, you take d of n is equal to big O of n square. So this is e of n. So according to the formula, f of n into d of n is equal to big O of g of n star e of n. That is equal to big O of what is g of n, which is nothing but n star. What is e of n? It is n square. This becomes big O of n cube. Is it right or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So these are the more important properties we have discussed about these asymptotic notations. Now the last slide. So other than these asymptotic notations, we have other two asymptotic notations which are called as little o and little omega. Right. So they are more strict than the upper bound. So we know that big O represents lower bound or upper bound?
Upper bound.
Upper bound.
Upper bound, sir.
Typically, big omega represents lower bound. Right. So if you come across this formula, if you see this formula, big O notations, it is represented as 0 less than or equal to f of n less than or equal to c into g of n. So if you remove this equality symbol, then they become more strict and they are represented with small o notation. Right. No need to bother about this one, but you should know that there exist other terms like this big O and big omega. Right. Similarly, this big omega represents the lower bound and it is used to find the best case, and the formula is written as 0 less than or equal to c into g of n less than or equal to f of n. So if you remove this equality symbol, then it becomes a small omega. Right. So these are the two things you have to remember. So little o provides strict upper bound, That means the equality condition is removed from the big O notation. Similarly, the little omega represents the strict lower bound, which is that means you have to remove the equality condition from the big omega. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So there exists, by this we have completed the complete syllabus. 100% syllabus has